Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to share a very quick tutorial on how I shape and use this calyx here. So I'm calling it a calyx. I hope that's the way it's pronounced. I looked it up too. It's sometimes called a sepal, so it's just the petals that are underneath a flower. So usually like a rose bud, you'll have a few petals right underneath. Those are called the calyx. I do hope I'm pronouncing it correct. So a lot of people were asking me whether I would be listing this, as I made this personally for myself and many people wanted it. So I did make a bundle out of it. There are 12 designs. Each has a variant with a circle in the middle. A lot of that information is in the listing, and I'm listing that down below in the description box if you're interested. So moving on, I'm going to try to make this really brief because there really isn't much to say about this. So for the calyx, I wanted something that would show from underneath my roses, but wouldn't be something too difficult to use. And so I didn't want it to take up a lot of time, but I did like the added value in terms of appearance and what it gave. So this is my rose template number 2, and I'm going to go ahead and link the tutorial and listing to that down below in the description box if you haven't seen it. But I am making a ton of these roses, and by a ton I'm saying like 200 of these to start. I am working on a new flower framed piece for my wall that sits right behind my workspace, and so those will be shown in a studio vlog that I want to get up. But I am making a lot of these roses, and I want this to sit on my wall behind me, and I want it to look good, you know. I don't know how else to explain that. I want it to look nice. I want it to showcase some of the flowers that I'm making. So I want to put effort into making it look a little more realistic, being made out of paper flowers, but still having that like added touch of looking real, just not real. So these calyxes here were supposed to kind of add to that. I didn't want to add leaves, but because of the way the frame will be built and the flowers will be added, there's going to be too much bulk that would hide all that greenery. So I don't think the effort would be best used in making leaves. And so just the calyx alone looks really nice. Went on that long-winded story just to say that I think it adds a little bit to your flowers without needing a whole ton of work. So for these calyx pieces here, I have different designs. This is the one that I wanted to go with because this is the design that I had in my mind. And it's really actually very simple to just use. The very basic thing you can do is just take one of the pieces and just curl in the petals like this. And that would give a nice little dimension to this piece here. And as you add it to a rose, I think it looks really, really nice. It adds in a little more of a realistic look to these roses here. However, I just think that it looks a little flat like that, so what I did was I actually just started shaping them with some tools that I have, and I'll share that soon. So I'm going to talk about the cardstock that I use because I actually have gotten a lot of questions already. So the cardstock here is by Basil, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It is in the color avocado, and it has a grass cloth texture on one side and a smooth finish on the other side. It's a very beautiful dark green color. This is going to be the basis for a lot of the greenery in my flower wall. And I usually get this at Joann's when they have a 10 piece for $2 deal. I buy a ton of it, and this is just a great cardstock to buy. I'm going to link it down below, any details that I have on this specific color. If you're interested, go ahead and check that out. So now that I've talked about that and I haven't forgot about it, I'm going to talk about how I shape it. I always end up talking so much. So I'm going to ask, as you're watching this, to not laugh. But I am using, for my shaping mat, a very old, or it's not old, I'm saying it's old, but it's not old. An old yoga mat. So I'm laughing at the same time because I wonder if people like, ew, a yoga mat. It's an old yoga mat that I haven't really used, and so it's clean and I've wiped it. And the reason why I have the yoga mat is because it's a nice surface that is like spongy, so you can also use a mouse pad. A mouse pad is the second thing that I can think of other than an official shaping mat. So you can use an old yoga mat if you have one, just clean it off, wipe it or whatever. You can cut a square and just use it, as well as these metal ball styluses there for shaping fondant or any sort of it's just like a shaping tool. Like if you're doing ceramics or anything, you usually use something to shape. I think these are specifically for fondant, but they have these metal balls on the end, and this helps shapes. So I will be using these a lot in the future for some of the projects I have planned, but these were only $6.50 on Amazon, I believe. I'll leave the link to the exact listing on Amazon down below. But because these calyxes are small, I am using the very smallest stylus here, or the last two smallest, and so they come with 4 and 8 different ball shapes. So I'm using that there, and I'll push this out of the way. And what I do is I just take the calyx. I like to have the grass cloth texture on the outside, so that's what shows from underneath. So I flip that over and I have this on the smooth side. And I basically just take the ball stylus and I just rub it all over the calyx here. So I've cut this out and now I'm going to just shape it. And what I do is I sort of follow the actual shape of the calyx petal here. I don't go on the very edge. It just doesn't help to go on the edge. So as I'm pressing down into this yoga mat or shaping mat, whatever you have, as I'm pressing down, I am pressing it so that a sort of depression or groove is created in the flower. And what happens is the edges sort of curl in and up. So when I want to do that, sort of just drawing on it. So I'm just going in sort of an oval shape from the edge of the petal to the center, and I just sort of draw that in and just press as hard as you can. This is a great stress relief. If you're upset at somebody, you can just take it out on these here. But then after I've gone through every petal, what I do is I just go in circles along the petals. Like that, and then I start going in a circle, and you've seen that without touching it, these tips here actually start curling upwards, and then I get a nice, more realistic looking shaping to this calyx here. So it's more of a cupped shape. You can actually help it too if you want to just curl in the tips a little bit better. And then when I put this underneath the actual rose, it looks a little more realistic. And so, is this necessary? No, I wouldn't say it's necessary, but it does add a little more of a realistic look because of the way that the petals are curved in. So with the calyx bundle that I have one that doesn't have any center cut out, and a second one identical with a little hole sort of design so that your cutting machine cuts a hole out of it. I don't like that because I don't want to see any sort of color underneath. So I don't want to have that hole that's sort of like punched in, and I'll kind of just drop a picture to show what I mean. So what I do when I'm making these specific flowers is I do have some floral wire that I've cut into about 6-inch wide pieces. And I've done the same thing with my other roses if you've seen any of my videos. But I take a tool, so this is just one of those sort of weighting tools. It has a nice pointed tip. I just poke it right in the middle. And I do this on this mat as well. So I've created just a little bit of a hole, and that way I can just slip this wire in. And what I do is I just take this 6-inch piece and I just bend it about 1/4 inch in, so it's sort of like an L shape. And what I do is I just sort of thread that through that little hole that was created. And then I'm adding glue. And then just sticking the flower right on top. So let the glue dry, and it only takes about 10 seconds. And then the stem doesn't really move. And then you have that calyx petal right there like that. And it adds to that more finished look. That is how I shape my calyx petals, and that's how I put together the whole flower, at least up to this point. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I am laughing because I can't believe I just used a yoga mat in one of these videos. I'm gonna link everything that I can down below in the description box, maybe even just a shaping mat, a good mouse pad, maybe something like that for you to use, and maybe even a yoga mat if you want. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.